The first time a city wakes to the sound of bombs dropping overhead, nothing prepares you for the strange normalization that follows. At first, the terror is immediate, visceral, and all-consuming. Windows shatter, streets fill with smoke, and people duck instinctively into shelters. Yet, over weeks and months, something remarkable happens. Life continues. Markets open, children play, and factories hum. Entire communities, entire cities adapt to living with constant death hovering just above their rooftops. This is not a story of heroics in a vacuum. It is a story of human resilience, improvisation, and grim pragmatism. Today, we'll explore how entire cities learn to live with constant death overhead, and what lessons modern preppers and historians can draw from these extraordinary experiences. Cities became psychological fortresses before physical ones. During the Blitz in London, from 1940 to 1941, the German Luftwaffe bombed the city nightly, sometimes dropping hundreds of tons of explosives in a single raid. The first attacks shattered nerves. People huddled in basements, terrified of the next explosion. Within weeks, however, Londoners developed a mental architecture as critical as any air raid shelter. Citizens learned to ration fear and divide attention between immediate survival and day-to-day life. Schools continued, offices reopened, and newspapers were printed despite the devastation. From a practical standpoint, this psychological shift was about establishing routines. Preppers can take a lesson here. When faced with ongoing threats, structuring daily life around survival priorities, safety checks, resource distribution, and alert drills reduces panic and maintains societal function. In practical terms, families can emulate this by assigning roles during emergencies, mapping safe routes in their neighborhoods, and running realistic drills until the responses become instinctive. Underground life became a normal part of daily existence. In Warsaw, during the 1939 to 1945 Nazi occupation, air raids and street battles turned basements, sewers, and makeshift bunkers into everyday spaces. Residents did not simply hide, they lived in these spaces. Children were born underground, and daily routines adjusted to low light, poor ventilation, and constant noise. Commerce adapted too. Underground markets, secret bakeries, and clandestine schools allowed community life to continue in what was effectively a parallel city below the streets. For historians and preppers alike, this demonstrates the value of adaptable infrastructure. It's not enough to have a shelter. It must be integrated into daily life. Modern equivalents include reinforced rooms in urban homes, stocked emergency basements, or even temporary underground living simulations to prepare psychologically and logistically for sustained crises. Community networks determined who survived and who didn't. In cities like Rotterdam and Coventry, survival was not simply about personal preparation. It was about information networks and collective response. Citizens developed informal alert systems. Neighbours would signal when bombs were imminent, volunteer fire brigades moved swiftly through the rubble, and rationing committees ensured food reached those most in need. Trust and coordination became as vital as any shelter or ration. This has a direct application today. Preppers should focus not just on stockpiling, but on building trustworthy networks. Organize with neighbours or local groups to share information, establish meeting points, and rotate emergency duties. In historical terms, the city that coordinated its community response maintained order. The one that isolated itself suffered chaos. Innovation and improvisation flourished under extreme pressure. Constant threat forced urban populations to innovate in ways that peacetime never demanded. During the siege of Leningrad, residents repurposed tram lines for fuel, turned frozen rivers into roads, and even developed improvised stoves from scrap metal. Necessity forced creative survival solutions, proving that ingenuity under pressure can often outweigh brute strength. For a modern prepper historian, this is a crucial lesson. Survival is as much about adaptability as resources. Practice improvisation now. Learn to repurpose household tools, create makeshift water filters, or convert everyday objects into defensive or utility tools. Acceptance of mortality became part of city culture. Perhaps the most unsettling adaptation is psychological. Citizens normalized death overhead. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, before the atomic blasts, residents had drilled evacuation routines for air raids, but largely accepted the inevitability of casualties. Mourning became public and functional. Funerals were organized quickly, and communities adapted culturally to loss. This acceptance did not mean indifference. It meant life could continue without succumbing to despair. From a practical perspective, this teaches historians and survivalists the importance of emotional preparedness. Mental resilience can be cultivated. Discuss worst-case scenarios with family, rehearse emergency responses, and recognize that fear is useful only when channeled into effective action. Historical awareness gives modern survival an edge. Studying these cities is more than academic curiosity. It informs modern preparedness by showing what works under prolonged stress. Urban planners, emergency response coordinators, and preppers alike can draw directly from these examples. The critical role of community networks, psychological routines, flexible infrastructure, and adaptive problem-solving. Learning from history allows us to anticipate not just the material needs of survival, but the social and emotional architecture necessary to sustain life in extreme circumstances. Applying these lessons today makes you a strategic thinker. For anyone interested in survival, the takeaway is clear: integrate resilience into daily life. Map your neighborhood for safe zones, stock flexible resources, train for rapid improvisation, and develop a trusted community. History shows that those who endure are not the strongest, but the most adaptive. The cities that survived relentless bombing were those that embraced structure, collaboration, and creativity in equal measure. By studying these cases, you equip yourself with tools that are as relevant today as they were decades ago. Every step we take to understand the past strengthens our ability to survive the future. If you found value in this deep dive into how entire cities learn to live with constant death overhead, subscribe to The Prepper Historian for more historical insights that double as practical survival knowledge. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts, because the lessons of the past are too valuable to stay hidden.